Hello, this is Carrie O'Donnell from Tarot Soul Writer, and today I'm here with my favorite guest, Dani, who apparently today is the grumpy Gen X modern mystic. Welcome,
Every
Dani.
day. Every day, I've embraced my grumpy. I've embraced my grumpy. Yeah. I really wanted to say bitchy, but I don't want to use that word. So it was the grumpy Gen X modernist.
Too late, just used it. Too late. Yeah, so Dani has been here before. For those of you who are new to my channel, we go way back to high school. We were high school pals. We kind of did our lives, separated a bit, kind of found ourselves again, and found out we were into the same things. So he is my go-to for anything astrological, which I'm hoping we can touch on today. I do have to make this announcement before we go into today's discussion. You might notice that we freeze up a little bit. This is totally me. This is my first live since I've made my move to New Hampshire. I'm using satellite. It is what it is. It's all I have. So hopefully it will all work out. Just bear with us. So Dan, what's going on with you and your channel and your business?
Okay. Well, it's always intimidating when you say that I'm here to do the astrology, because I do work with astrology a lot. And when I get into something, I really like dip my teeth into it, really like I sink my teeth really deeply. So I do work with it a lot, and we're going to talk a lot about astrology today. But I consider myself like the way I specialize is doing spirit journeys. So on my channel, it's Dani's Moon Heart meditation journeys, and I focus on creating a space where we use the tarot and we use astrology as a jumping off point to get some inspiration. And then we do a meditation session focusing on some particular issue or problem or something that we're all experiencing in the world. But we're going to talk about astrology today. I don't put myself out there as like the greatest expert. But I actually also don't believe there's a such thing as an expert in astrology. We can talk about that more later. People pretend they're an expert, and really it's all just like any other spiritual like divination practice, right? Mm-hmm. It's about like whoever is channeling or whoever is connecting with spirit in that moment, in that space, like the meaning that comes through there is what's authentic and real. So yeah, that's always important to understand.
Yeah, and I kind of like that idea of being a hybrid in a sense. That's what because you've taken a bit from, like you said, shamanic journeying and astrology and your own intuition, and you've put that together into something that's completely unique. And I get that because Tarot Soul Writer, I'm using automatic writing and tarot and my own channeling abilities to also create a new way of receiving messages.
Right.
So I think that should be honored, especially. So yeah. I just wanted to say good morning to Catherine. Thank you for stopping by and saying hi. And if you have any questions, anyone who shows up in the chat today, I know that my channel tends to have a political bent to it, but today we're not going to deal with specific political questions. We're just going to talk about the spirituality, what's going on with the energies behind what might be coming up in 2024. So with that said, astrologically and what you are dealing with in your practice, what do you see as coming up energetically in 2024?
Right. Well, I have a page of a whole bunch of notes, and I can go like in all kinds of different directions. What I would say first, mainly just to kind of put it more simply at the beginning, is there's between now and June, really, it's a bumpy ride. It's a bumpy ride. Not all bad bumpy. There's actually a lot going on astrologically speaking that are important events from which we can draw inspiration and empowerment and healing. But I also, while on my channel, I don't go into like the political realm explicitly, as we were just discussing behind the scenes, Carrie. I try to also like be aware that the energy work and the healing work that I'm doing is really to apply apply it in a practical sense in the world in which we're living, right? And the overarching sort of energy or theme I'm working with for myself for 2024 is actually around Venus. As we'll talk about in a few more minutes, there's other major things going on astrologically, but for me, I'm watching Venus. So the whole first half of the year until June 4th, so almost to the middle of the year, right? The whole first half of the year, Venus is the morning star. Now, if you look outside your window on a given morning now, she's relatively high in the sky, but still in the morning star phase. And then on June 4th, Venus has the super conjunction with the sun in Gemini. And then for the rest of the year, Venus will be the evening star. So why does that matter? And it relates to all the crazy shit going on in the world that you'll talk about too, especially the first half of the year, is that the Venus as the morning star is about shining our light out to others. And then when it turns to be an evening star, you can flip it. And it's kind of more going inward and shining, focusing on your own inner work, inner healing work. So I think that that Venus thing for me, Carrie, is that as you and I are both looking at the messages we're getting from Spirit for the first half of the year, knowing it's going to be a crazy, bumpy freaking ride, right? The hard part, or the easy part for some of us, is to, as hard as this time might be and as crazy as it might be, is to connect with the energy of Venus to shine our lights outward, right? So it's really trying to not be so like me, self focused, but maintain the discipline of shining our light outward. So that's the general theme I'm working with for the year, is that morning star up until June 4th, and maintaining that sense of commitment to like everyone around us as we go through all of the challenges that we may face in the coming like 6 months or so. So that's my starting off point.
You know, that kind of reminds me, now I don't know if I can find the card, but I had pulled some cards at the beginning of the show. Oh. Of course, now I can't find it, but that moon card, that star card to the moon.
Oh.
And that was one of our ending cards. I'll have to find it after, but it was an in-between tarot, and it showed the star to the moon. And you were just talking about Venus as like, the morning star to the evening star, and the moon in tarot really reflects that inner work.
Right.
Which is now giving me a whole new meaning for the card that we pulled before the show started.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say hello to a few more people who stopped by the chat. We have Emery. Hello from Montreal. Hi, Emery. We have Tom, who stopped by. Kathy, who is saying, nice to meet you. And then we also have Carol from Oklahoma. And we are going to get to your question, Carol. I'm going to star this. And we're to come back to that at the end, because I think talking about spirit guides and connecting to spirit might be something we can end with. So hold that thought. So tell me more about the chaos that you might see, the bumpy rides, because I got lots of them when I'm doing my 2024 forecasts and trying to get, what's the happenings.
Right.
And yeah, I get a lot of bumps in the road. What are some aspects that are showing up that you feel are difficult? Energetically?
Right. Okay. So let's go through this in chunks. So I already mentioned Venus June 4th in the superior conjunction with the sun in Gemini, and just to underscore on that date also, Mercury and Jupiter will also be in the sign of Gemini, and they will be conjunct with each other and trining with Pluto. So now Jupiter is a very positive, hopeful planet, and Mercury is like our thoughts and our communication, our expression. So I just want to underscore that moment in June 4th. I almost want everyone to write down June 4th, in their notes, as that moment when Venus and the Sun are conjunct together in Gemini. Jupiter and Mercury are conjunct in Gemini, and this is the moment where it's like a bright shining star of hopefulness, a culmination of the effort we've made in the months before that to be a positive force, a positive spirit in the world, a culmination of that effort. And then beginning at that point for the rest of the year, we can begin to look more, to quiet down a little bit, Carrie, and look a little bit more inwardly. So I just wanted to like stress that June 4th moment. Well, what got me excited for us talking today on the 19th of January is this is like huge. This is like 20-year huge. And I'm so excited that tomorrow is the day that Pluto ingresses from Capricorn to Aquarius. So Pluto has been for like 20 years in Capricorn. Okay. And Pluto is the planet of lots of things, but among other things, is the planet of transformation, and can cause a lot of chaos. If you think about Capricorn, which represents institutions and leadership, and the fact that Pluto has been in Capricorn for the past 20 years or so, we can talk about that at another time, but like imagine that, right?
Right.
And it tends to be also that as the planet gets towards the end of a sign, it can kind of like kick things up even more, even in a more crazy way. So we've had some craziness in terms of recent years, in terms of institutions and leadership. So what's exciting to me is that now Pluto shifts into Aquarius, and Pluto is challenging us. Aquarius is both, it's a really interesting and enigmatic sign to me. And what I want to lift up here is it's about me individually, but how I fit into the collective and the community. And it's important to have my own sense of self-actualization, self-identity. The I is important, right, in Aquarius, but it's also about the relationship and friendships and community and interconnectedness and the matrix, right? So when Pluto moves tomorrow into Aquarius, it's the beginning of 19 years of all of us collectively, fundamentally reinventing what it means to be the I, interrelating with the world and the community around us. So it's a really, I think it's a really, it's exciting to me, but I also am mindful that it's going to be very uncomfortable. And I mean, when you talk about like communities coming together, and I'm thinking right now about immigration issues, which is a problem around the world. I know we're not going to talk about politics,
Right,
but
specifically.
in depth. But I just want to call that out. That's what's coming up for me as an example of this Pluto and Aquarius, like having all of us as humankind re-examining what it means to be okay with myself and safe in my own skin, but also be part of something bigger than me. That means that's more meaningful than just the I, it's also the we. And that's going to last like 20 years. So we're on the cusp today, this day as we record this, Carrie, of that major Pluto ingress into Aquarius. So that's the next item on my list.
I wanted to add, because I just got this thought as someone who dabbles in what's happening in our country, just not just politically, but emotionally and spiritually. I mean, that idea of the I, individualism, it's such a part of American culture.
Absolutely.
And it's always been at odds with the collective. And so it's that when you have that, and it's so ingrained that most Americans have this identity of, being that independent and forging without help and making new paths and, all about, like you said, self-actualization for the self, but having to have to face that for the next 20 years and try to say, well, maybe we have to create a new identity and evolve, which is kind of moving our nation from adolescence to some sense of maturity, I think, in this period. And that's always, I don't know about you, but my adolescence to maturity was kind of a rough ride. Like I always say, like you talk about raising kids or being a kid young, when you're young. Oh no, I would do that all day long. But early 20s, that was rough. Like when you're trying to figure it all out, who am I and what am I going to be doing? And I kind of feel like that's where we're going to in this period. You know, moving from, I graduated from high school, but how do I become a mature member of the world community?
Yeah.
So I bet a lot of those themes are going to pop out.
Right. So I think like what's rough about this is that, you know, this Pluto in Aquarius is it's going to last like 19 years. So the next few years of this is going to be very new, and that's why it's going to be so uncomfortable for people, because the energy has shifted so dramatically from Capricorn to Aquarius. And again, it's a very challenging, and Pluto is very intensive. It's very intensive planet energy. That's why for me, these next few months, as we're suddenly being confronted with how do you really fit into the bigger whole, the bigger collective, we're not going to be answering that question, right? In the next 6 months, in the next year even, but we're going to be challenged, right? And made to be feel very uncomfortable about it. And that's why I'm grabbing on to that Venus, that morning star, to say, it's going to be a long road of challenge. And let's just keep ourselves centered on, again, shining our light to others, knowing that we are all experiencing this shift. And it's going to be profound for all of us. So rather than instinctively go inward and like just worry about my own self, try to maintain that discipline of shining a light to others through the early days of this Pluto in Aquarius. What happens after that? That's helpful in the astrological charts. We're going to have February, March, April. Okay, each month, 3 super new moons in a row. Okay, 3 super new moons in a row. A lot of people tend to focus on full moons because you can see a full moon. It's
Right.
a big shiny orb in the sky. You can't see the new moon. You can't see it, right? If a full moon is about like revelation and like connecting the dots and coming to fruition, the new moon is about letting go, separation, death, right? That breath before you begin to plant new seeds. So I actually myself in my own spiritual work pay a little more attention to new moons actually than I do full moons. And we're going to have 3 months in a row of super new moons. So February 9th. So just like as we're coming off of that initial shock, right, of Pluto shifting into Aquarius, we'll have a new moon in Aquarius on February 9th. So it's really underscoring, okay, before you overreact in a me way to that Pluto ingress into Aquarius, and because it's going to be really uncomfortable, just take a breath inside in that new moon, that dark cave of a new moon, and just pause. Don't react to it. Pause in contemplating the meaning of what this shift of Pluto is going to be like. And then in March, of course, okay, what comes after Aquarius? I'm testing you, Carrie. What comes after Pisces? Okay. So the new moon, the super new moon in March, on March 10th.
March 10th. Okay.
Is in Pisces, right?
Okay.
Now, Pisces means lots of things. Like the meaning for me that I want to lift up for Pisces in this season is compassion. Okay, compassion for the greater good, compassion for the planet. I mean, Pisces means dreams, and it means our inner soul's workings, but it's also related to compassion, forgiveness, right? So again, we first had the new moon in Aquarius, just pause on what this Aquarius ingress means. And then March is like almost like refilling our tank of compassion and forgiveness, because we're going to need a lot of it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
So that's the March new moon. Last one, I'll see what comes up for you, Carrie. April 8th is not only a super new moon in Aries. Aries is what? Aries is I am, me.
Mm-hmm.
I am, my needs, my action and expression in the world. So that's why that Aquarius and that Pisces new moon before that was preparing us, so that now in April, we can start to become a little bit more an activist. Okay, an activist. So it's the I am, but how do we channel that towards the greater good of the collective, because of the fact that we're now in this early stages of Pluto and Aquarius, the foundations of what community means are being just like shaken to the core. So now we can begin to like act out in the world. And it's not only a super new moon, it's also on April 8th, a total freaking solar eclipse.
Like no pressure.
No pressure.
And I will say that you can explain to me like how I mean, I understand eclipses are symbolic of change and so forth. And you could talk a little bit about the astrology. A lot of people, other astrologers that I've seen have said astrologically, it's not necessarily a big deal. But I have for this one, just energetically, I really saw this as a symbolic point where people would look back and say, there was the world before the eclipse and there was the world after the eclipse, that there's something about this particular time in which it becomes a symbol of a before and after. What kind of things were you picking up around that?
I mean, to me, the phrase that came into my head as you were talking is largely turning up the volume, really. I mean, in some sense, if you think about the astrology, it's like it's a major arcana reversal. It's like a major arcana card, which for me is like much more profound work, right, than the rest. And it's a reversal, which again in tarot can mean many, many different things. But for me, this is just like turning the volume way up on this moment of this Aries new moon, because again, the Aries is like is the me and the I trying to like screaming outward, and the new moon is again trying to quell that energy and turn it not to like selfish, self-centered purposes, but redirect it. So to me, like and solar sun is our sense of our identity and vitality, right? So the eclipse of the sun in this instance for me is turning it, flipping it on its head to not be again so self-oriented, again back to that Venus morning star shining outward, oriented towards not yourself but towards the world around you. We have to be reminded of this like constantly, because we're selfish beings. I mean, we have to worry about being fed and being safe and all that kind of good stuff. It's difficult to be forgiving, right? And patient with other people's crazy behavior.
I struggle with it every single day. And apparently you do too, Dan, because you're a grumpy Gen X modern mystic.
I'm so grumpy. So grumpy. I don't read the news anymore because I'm so grumpy and upset by the news. So I can't deal.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is kidding aside, it's really hard to forgive.
Yeah.
And to understand what forgiving really means. It's not forgetting. It's not saying that what something someone did or a happening is okay. It's like freeing yourself from that anger and freeing yourself from that. I guess it's another way of detaching from that negative space.
Right. And that's the challenge that's the challenge that I'm seeing is it's going to be. I'm kind of curious if you can share. I know this is you interviewing me, but if you can share about like the cards that you've. I mean, have you sat and you've done like pulled cards for the year and gotten messages yourself from spirit for the year? I'm kind of curious from what I've been sharing right now so far about what I'm seeing, astrologically speaking. Like, how does that parallel at all with what you've been picking up?
Yeah, I mean, there are definite parallels. I've gotten, I just finished July of 2024, so I haven't looked at August and beyond yet. Like, I'm still working on that because I'm trying to deep dive it. But January, I kind of had this sort of a transition month. Yes, I got happenings, but I felt like energetically, it was like we were just gearing up for something. February, it felt like a bomb. Now, whether this is international happenings or happenings in the United States, if you can go back on my videos and take a look at what I was picking up. But I kind of felt like it was one of those scary months for a lot of people. Like a lot of people would be in fear because there might be happenings that are going to make people feel like they're not in control. So I don't know if that resonates with things that you're picking up for February, but I found February to be one of the most difficult months. And then I got March. It's kind of like, okay, there's leadership in place or people in place that are going to help to control maybe the chaos of February. Like there's going to be like some sense of order, some sense of, okay, we can try to put things in compartments so we can begin to deal with things. So kind of March makes people feel a little safer. Then April, it's like you get another hit. Like I said, that eclipse energy, I really got like a whole new wave of crazy happenings again, of a sense of, all right, like here we go, round 2, just when we're trying to kind of control what happened in February.
Right.
And then I get May and June, the most difficult. I get complete changes and upheaval in world leadership. We'll just keep it at that. Both like right across the board, major countries, huge leadership shifts. And this is going to affect all the things that we see out there. The war with Ukraine, what's happening in the Middle East, all of that. So there's going to be a lot of huge shifts, but the shifts seem to be very positive in the end. Like, even though they seem scary and like, oh my God, what do we do now? I am seeing it as a positive. Like we have some hope. We have some sense of justice. We have some sense of we can move forward with this. But there's also that when I got to July, there was a sense of a need for unification, especially in the United States. And it's kind of like we had to, and it's interesting you talked about forgiveness, because I got a call in a sense for forgiveness, that there would be unification speeches made by leadership to say, you know what, you need to look at your perceived enemy and you have to see yourself in that enemy, like really like looking at the mirror. Like one of the messages I got is the United States, for example, has to look at its darker facets and understand that that's part of who you are. Yeah. Like you have to accept it and embrace it and make this and see it and deal with it and then make that part of your future solution. So I see July as sort of a transformative month, I guess, especially in this country. So I don't know if any of that just energetic stuff resonates with anything you got.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely the first couple of months of this year were more difficult. I also, I mean, just to briefly, I'll tick through the cards. I do like an annual calendar and I draw cards for each month. So, and a lot of this is consistent. I had 9 of Pentacles reversed in January, King of Wands reversed in February. So, right.
Oh, interesting.
right.
Yeah.
March was 7 of Pentacles, which is kind of on par with what you're describing. I have 4 of Cups in April, right? Which is not as ground as like earth shattering as you're saying, but a little bit of like a pull, like I'm not so sure kind of a thing. June is 9 of Wands reversed. So, right. And then July, I have the Star card for July. And
that's my America card too.
Right.
And I got some like we're coming back. It was like that kind of energy, like, come on, America, like, let's get it together. Let's come together. Let's take this difficult moments or these difficult moments and let's rise. Yeah. Like, this is our time to make something better, which it's interesting because we'll be at the height of whatever's going on with the election. And God knows, I mean, I'm almost feeling like I don't even have a real context for what I'm seeing. Like I'll get a message, I'll get a feeling, and I'm writing everything down and I'm trying to put it together. But I keep feeling like for this year, 2024, I don't have a real context for what I'm seeing. So it's almost like I'm guessing, I think this means we're doing X, or I think this means, and I'm trying to put it together with what I know about the world now. But I think that the shifts will be so dramatic, there might be surprises like, oh, that's what that meant. Like, I feel like I'm going to have that moment coming up.
I should go back to April because I mean I had one more major, very important astrological event
Yeah.
that I hadn't mentioned yet that actually happens in April, which is a month that I think you just mentioned that you feel
I felt like a round two
right.
of people.
So now I'm still all into like mainly for this year is like the Pluto and Aquarius, but another big one is on April 20th. This is something that only happens every 14 years. It's a Jupiter and Uranus conjunction.
Oh.
So Jupiter and Uranus will be in conjunction, so aligned on top of each other in Taurus, and not just in Taurus, but at 21 degrees of Taurus. So so in degrees in astrology, there's some degrees that are more like critical, or the energy is more exaggerated. And for the fixed signs, and Taurus is one of the fixed signs, the critical degrees are 8, 9, 20, and 21. So when this Jupiter Uranus conjunction happens in Taurus, which for me I want to talk about is really about what we value. And again, Taurus can mean lots of different things. It's a fixed earth sign. It's like pleasure. It's our body, physicality, money, and finances, and that kind of stuff. But also like what we value, what we take pleasure in, but what we most value. And the conjunction, because it's Uranus and Jupiter, Uranus is a really like rebellious, like crazy, queer, like out of this world, like, because Uranus is on its side. I don't know if people know, like the actual planet itself does not rotate the way the rest of the planets do. It's like on its side. Right?
I didn't know that. Okay.
So this planet of rebellion joined with like Jupiter is just like swollen, expansive, like it's a lot of like faith and hope also. There's this rebellious, hopeful energy around what we value. So that's why, to me, like that disruption that you're picking up in April, it's not all bad. And I think you said that. It's not like a dark gloominess.
No.
It's like major change, right? And for me, it's about like what we really actually value here, That's what I get in that as the theme. Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I got a lot of protests, a lot of, especially with women and worldwide.
Yeah.
Not just American women and what's going on here, but especially in other nations.
Right.
That it's almost like we've had enough. By April, it's like, It's like people are just like, no, oh, hell no. And taking to the streets. And it might be that what I'm seeing is other issues as well. That, like you said, things that people value, where people are like, okay, democracy, for example, is an active sport.
Right.
Like now I understand if I really value something, I have to stand up for that. And maybe what I'm seeing that like round two is just that, sort of like a second round of upheaval as we stand up for what we really want in the collective.
Right.
And it's in the collective. I have to stress that because you're always saying like that I versus the we.
Right.
But there comes a time where, I might have what I want, but ultimately we have to come to some sort of compromise for that collective, that collective body.
Yeah, I mean the thing that's I mentioned earlier in this discussion that Aquarius, for me at least, it as a sign is like one of the most enigmatic signs or energies, because there's an aspect of like it's known for like a detached nature to it, right? It's like I'm gonna just like step back and detach and be like kind of like not swayed or not gonna like get myself dirty, so to speak, kind of thing. Which, and at the same time, as I said, it's about friendships, relationships, communities, and being in that connectedness, that web, right? So as an energy, as a sign, it's actually kind of like contradictory, like that being detached, but also being part of the collective. And so I think that for me, what's so consequential, and again, the underscoring this is like, think about what's going on in our country in this time, is we have to make that choice between whether we are going to be part of it and whether we're going to be part of the, I don't want to say play the game, but contribute, not play the game, contribute,
Contribute.
right?
I like that word.
Contribute
Mhm.
our best, and like give a shit, care about how we
Yeah.
can make our small contribution. We have that choice. And I'm sympathetic to like how tempting it is. Just say, you know what? This is too much for me. I can't change it. I can't believe what I'm seeing in terms of how people are thinking and behaving. I'm just going to like check out. I'm checking out. I'm going to go move to the mountains, Carrie.
Because I am the ultimate in checking out. I'm
You're like, move to the
peace out.
freaking mountains and you're done. You're done with this. You're like,
God.
one tree falls when it snows and you're cut off from the rest of the
Which already happened. But that's all right.
So, but to be serious about this, like this to me is like, this is the whole first half of this year for me, right?
Yeah.
Is that we're going to be challenged over and over again. Do I care enough, as hard as it might be, to, again, shine my light, make my contribution, whatever. And it could be protests in the street, or it could be just be more decent to the person next to us in line in the
Right.
store, because people have become so nasty,
Right.
just that, just channel that energy. But that's why I keep going back to Venus. That divine feminine for me is like my safety net for this year. So
Divine feminine. And
Yeah.
it is I think it is the year of the divine feminine rising up.
Mm.
I saw that all across the board with my world predictions.
Mm.
In fact, I think when I looked at Russia, it was even the message of, if you disgrace or defile your mother, you must pay. And I could take that symbolically in so many different ways for what that nation is experimenting with here.
Right.
But yeah, divine feminine. So I just wanted to just say hi to a few people we didn't say hi to. Now, is it Raydu from Halifax? I don't know if I said your handle right, but welcome. And I also see Joy, who just got here, but she's going back to the beginning. So welcome, Joy. And I hope you catch up. And I did see Tom, which I started his question, and we can get to it afterwards, but we'll just say hello to Tom. And actually, do you want to take a stab at maybe a couple of the questions that came through?
Sure. If I can answer, if we can answer them,
I could pull some cards for some of these things.
No, I don't know. I don't fully understand Tom's question. I apologize.
Did you see energy connections between current world events and ET's disclosure? Now, there are things that are going on that I know a lot of people are talking about this in the community, that there is an ET disclosure coming up, like that they're preparing us to explain that, yes, there is intelligent life, and yeah, they might have been connected to us for a while. That seems to be the theory that's out there. And I guess what he's asking, and Tom, if you're still here, tell me if I'm wrong, but do we see any connections with the energy and the current events that are happening right now and preparing for some sort of ET disclosure? I kind of feel like probably not, but I'm willing to pull a couple cards.
I'll leave this one to you, Carrie. This is more up your alley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to say that a lot of what's happening is more about what Dan's talking about. Just energetically, we're ready for a shift. But let me just see if there's ET involvement in that. We'll just take a look. All right, so it's funny that I got the star card reversed. I mean, that can be hopelessness, but it's interesting we're talking about star beings, and ETs. It is in the reversal, which makes me feel like they're not behind everything here, or this disclosure situation isn't behind all that's happening. The Fool card is reversed, so sort of not part of that journey forward. There is a lack of balance here. And one thing I'm feeling here is that we're really not ready for any kind of ET disclosure. So maybe it's possible that some of the happenings could have taught people in certain positions that that's not something we're ready to hear. We don't seem to be in balance. And it's funny, I have the 10 of Cups. Now, this is a yes card. So I can't say for sure that some of the things you might be thinking about aren't related to preparing us for a possible disclosure. But what I get here is a home feeling. And next to this, we're not ready card, it's kind of like we need to focus on our home. We need to focus on what's going on here, how we connect to each other, how we connect to the human family before we're ready for an ET disclosure. So I guess I'm going to say, if there are some connections with the happenings, then I guess the conclusion is we're probably not ready yet, and we need to do some more work before we can actually disclose any kind of revelation about ETs. That would be my take on it.
When you first started to, again, this is more up your alley, but I just shut my eyes to see what sort of like visual, intuitive hit I got, and it was just an image of from the perspective of me being like a small child in like a backyard enclosed by a little picket fence. And so it's like staying home, being young, being innocent, was what was coming into my mind's eye as you were describing that. I think there's some similarities again to what you just picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely feel it. And I guess we did okay because Tom said, thanks, more work. Yes. So it makes sense then, because I do feel like those cards are saying, not ready. How about Carol's question?
Yeah,
From Oklahoma, she wanted to know what the best way was to communicate with spirit guides. So it's so hard to talk about how other people should connect. Maybe we should talk about how we connect so that we can help you to find the way that's best for you. I mean, how did it start for you, Dan?
Oh boy. Let's see. I first had cultivated merely a mindfulness practice, right? So the way I can trace this for myself is I wasn't, this was many years ago, but I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on cultivating a mindfulness practice. So for a while, I was just practicing meditation of just openness, and I would sort of like focus on my chakras and just focus on alignment and being centered. And after that, for me, again, this is like everyone, as many humans as have ever been alive on this planet, there's that many answers to that question, right? So,
Right.
But for me, after that, I would sit at night. For me, it has to be dark, and some people, I mean, it's easier for me if it's dark, right? And for me, the way I explain that is it reduces the number of other stimuli that are coming into bothering my brain, right? So sitting in darkness, maybe a candle, and it was, again, for just in my instance, it wasn't voices or messages per se. It was like, I'm just gonna say a presence.
Mm-hmm.
And like the first time it happened to me, it was like a presence over my right shoulder, and I was, because I was in that mindfulness state, there was an openness and feeling relaxed about it. There was initially like a fear. So I want to say, for some of us, those fears are related to lots of things, religious upbringings and all kinds of things that we associate with this type of thing. But so I would just also say too, if you're first beginning to do this, if you have that like fearfulness, just gently be willing to not push past it, but like maybe flow through it, and allow that presence to come closer to me, maybe not physically, but energetically closer to me. So mine was a series of just like evening darkness, just opening myself up to whatever came, and just not being worried about looking up in some manual or some book or some blog or some YouTube channel, what that thing that I experienced meant.
Mhm.
You can be inspired by what other people model, but you must allow it to just like happen and flow and experience it. That's my quick and dirty.
And I have to say that the key factor, I think, in what you said and what I've experienced is that you must quiet the mind.
Yeah.
You have to, because, and my guides are probably laughing their butts off right now because I am the queen of being in my own head.
Yeah.
So the head is going, all the thoughts. And for me, it was writing and also being in nature. That's when I feel most grounded and feel in the flow and can quiet my mind. Writing, I think that has to be a pen to paper because it grounds me in something, quiets my mind, even if it means mind dumping at first before I start to get messages.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking a lot. I know people who run and do physical activity in order to get in that zone and to get in that space to receive messages.
Right.
So I'm hoping that these are some good ways you can experiment with to communicate with your own spirit guides. And I know you said, I feel our visions for change toward a more loving, accepting world are slowly manifesting into reality. Hate is destroying us.
I see other questions, but I would encourage about meditation. I'm not overly salesy or pluggy with my channel, but I have a few short like teachy videos in my channel, which is Dani's Moon Heart Meditation Journeys, about just like some basics of meditation. So folks that are asking that question, you can see if there's anything there that serves you. So
yeah, and I think that for Crystal, right?
Yeah.
Meditating without thinking what happens. Mind chatter is the problem, and maybe we have to stop thinking about meditation as well as just sitting there like going, like in silence, because I can't meditate like that.
No,
I can't. There are other ways that we had just mentioned, and go to Dan's channel. And I was going to plug him at the end, but let's plug Dan now. All of Dan's information is down below. And I encourage you to subscribe to his channel, find him on Facebook, Instagram, go to his website, ahealingbeing.com, and take a look at the work that he's doing, because you're doing fabulous work. And I'm hearing the drum and I'm seeing the time. And I think it's time for our concluding meditation.
I was reminding you of because it's getting late, but that's okay.
No, I was totally looking because we wanted the last 10 minutes we like to end with a meditation. So I should do cards first, correct?
Yeah, you can do some cards.
Right.
And I'll just see what comes to me.
So we looked at a lot of things right now about 2024, the energy of 2024, how we can ground ourselves, deal with the energies, prepare for the new, work on forgiveness, work on quieting the mind. So I'm going to pull 3 cards. 3 cards. Right. All right, one more. Bear with me. All right, I pulled my crystal card, and I think this is, I'm so bad at crystals, Scolasite. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but it's basically for the energy of being able to relax and chill and calm your worries, which I thought was really interesting. Find space where you can connect with yourself and stop the worry machine in your head. I also pulled from my In-Between Tarot, the 10 of Cups to the Ace of Cups. Home to joy, community and coming together to create joy and connection. We're in that in-between space. And then I pulled the fire element. It's igniting your fires, igniting your passions, doing what makes you happy. Dare I say it, doing what is authentically you in this time, because you came here with unique skills and energy in order to move through this time of change.
So whoever's still here with us, just sit and be still for a moment and close. I invite you to close your eyes if that's helpful for you in any meditation. This will be a guided meditation. You'll hear my voice describing a place and an experience. So just take a few deep but gentle breaths to still yourself and listen to the sound of my voice. I'm going to gently drum here. Do you hear the drum, Carrie?
I hear the drum.
Okay.
Just right.
So imagine that you are sitting in a rowboat. Believe it or not, you are in a rowboat in the middle of a large pond, and the water is perfectly still around us, and the sun is high in the sky, and it's a beautiful spring day, and you're by yourself, sitting in the rowboat, in the middle of the pond, crystal clear water, sun shining above. You're not rowing, you're just sitting and contemplating. You're sitting and contemplating. The pond is located in a small park in the middle of a town. And as you look around you, you can see through the trees of the park, the buildings of Main Street. And you see some cars passing, and you see some people walking, going about their lives, going about their day. In the distance, you hear the sound of a siren. Someone's in distress somewhere, but you're here in the center of this beautiful pond, crystal clear water, quietly contemplating your contribution in this small community. You're asking yourself, when I row this boat back to the dock, when I leave this beautiful, safe, serene place, and I go back to the town, and I confront my neighbors, what will be my contribution? Something different that I may not have been willing to give before. Maybe I'll just contribute some more forgiveness, some more patience when I'm standing in line at the grocery store, more patience when someone drives recklessly around me on the road, more understanding. Look into the water over the edge of that rowboat. Look into the clear crystal water of that beautiful pond in the park, in the small town. And look into your own reflection. Look into your own eyes. Look deeply into your own eyes and ask yourself, what is the value that I will now commit to contribute to life in the town, in my town, in my community. Look into your eyes. Look into your own eyes and answer that question. What is the value you will bring to the world around you? Begin to row back towards the shore. And as always, when I finish these short meditations with Carrie, I remind you to think about picking up a pen and paper and making some notes about what may have come to you, or maybe this evening you can sit again for a few minutes and contemplate this moment and do some writing in that time. What's our commitment, Carrie?
What did you say? What's our commitment?
What's our commitment? Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm like really lightheaded too. I know Carol said, I'm definitely rewatching this. I already feel lighter. I kind of feel lightheaded. I don't know where you took us, but to the pond, to home. That was good. That was a good one.
Good.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up today and enjoying our conversation. And to Dan, thank you so much for coming on my channel. And as always, it's a pleasure.
Always be lighthearted, everyone, because you're not alone. Thank you for having me, Carrie. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.